My comment is, first of all, thank you. With Wrath of Khan and Time After Time, which I think is a brilliant sci-fi movie, but also a wonderful romance. This is two of my favorite films from the late 70s, early 80s. Thank you very much. And now, my question is one that's been burning in my mind since I saw the first trailer for Star Trek II. Is that really Ricardo Montalban's chest?
Here's the short answer. Yes. It's the most frequently asked question about the movie, which gives you some idea of the cultural and intellectual preoccupation. They explain George Bush. Ricardo Montalban had a very interesting life, lovely man, and among other things, was a physical fitness nut way before any of that became fashion, and he really kept himself in shape. Interestingly enough, in 1945, he was filming a movie called Across the Wide Missouri, that's his name, and a horse rolled over him and crushed some vertebrae in his back. So he had a limp, which he managed to conceal to the extent that he danced with Lena Horne on Broadway in Jamaica in that show, and no one was aware of it. You could see, and you can't see it in Cannes either. But he worked out, kept himself in great shape, and he was fine until this was about 12 years ago, or 11 years ago, right before the 20th anniversary of the Wrath of Khan, where suddenly something in his back finally gave way. And for the next 8 years of his life, he was in agony, just agony. He had operations at UCLA, and this was a guy who was a gentleman and he never raised his voice, and suddenly all his self-control, and he was, in a wheelchair and stuff, and this 1945 injury had caught up with him in a terrible, terrible way. But it's definitely his chest.
Yeah, can we get someone from on this side?
I got one for you. Thanks a lot for coming, Mr. Meyer. I appreciate your work. When Star Trek II is discussed, it's considered by critics and most fans as the best of the entire series of Star Trek.
You're right, yeah.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the legacy of being an acting director? Well, the best in the series.
I'm sorry, how do I feel about it? I feel very good. Listen, an artist cannot claim to be an objective judge of his own work, and he certainly is not the definitive judge. That cannot be, we're like Moses, you can get to the edge of the River Jordan, but you're never going to cross it and turn around and see the view from the other side. That's not allowed. Artists are people who put messages in bottles, and when you're finished, you put the cork in and throw the bottle out there and hope that someone's going to find it and be able to make out what you put inside. But you're not going to be there when they do. And you won't be looking over their shoulder telling them what it means or how to feel about it or interpreting it. That's not done and so forth. We are not the answer at the back of a book of math equations. What we say is just another opinion. You lose all proprietary authority over your creation when it's finished and it goes into that bottle. People will make of it what they will. I think I would be very churlish if I turned up my nose at the feelings that this movie has evoked in people all this time. I'm proud, but I'm also grateful and astonished, and if it were possible for me to be humble, I'd be humble. It's just a really lucky thing. I had a friend who had a film company. It was called Miracle Pictures, and their sobriquet was, if it's a good picture, it's a miracle. And so Star Trek is not the main thing in my life, but I would be, I think, really immediately turn up my nose and look down my nose at the effect that this movie has on people. That's the whole bloody point of doing it. And so I'm very proud and relieved and happy that, and I want it to stay that way. I want it to always be the best of the series. I must talk to JJ about this.
This may not have an answer to it, but I've always enjoyed it.
That's never stopped.
I've always enjoyed watching a movie at the end to show some scenes that edited out. Are there any scenes from Star Trek 2 that you've edited out? Or is this just a complete piece?
There were, when I edited the film, there comes a moment, and most directors do not have final cut. You are at the mercy of what the studio decides. The studio, in this case, really loved the movie, and what they asked for the most part, I didn't find difficult to accommodate. I had a couple of differences of opinion where I lost out, and when I did the DVD, or maybe the television version, I was allowed to put those things back in. They weren't major, big things, but identifying Midshipman Preston as Scotty's nephew was important to me. Paramount didn't like it, but I thought it belonged, I put it back. They wanted to reissue the DVD and call it the director's cut, and I said, that's a jip. It's not really different enough to merit that. And no, there are not a lot of missing outtakes from it. I also think that outtakes from a movie, depending on the kind of movie, are or are not appropriate at the end. I think it works for comedies. This is intended, despite the humor that's in it, to be a serious, not to say wrenching, heart-wrenching film. And I didn't want to bounce people out of that emotional catharsis that the film intends you to have by suddenly trivializing it, by taking you behind the curtain. That didn't seem to me appropriate anyway.
Over here.
Mr. Meyer, thank you for coming to Kannapolis. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I was curious in the Rapid-Con if William Shatner ever approached you and suggested some different things in any of the scenes.
Again, some of this is in my book, and if you've already read the book, and I'm sorry for repeating this stuff. When I finished the screenplay, I turned it into Paramount, and everybody was very happy, and of course the next thing I had to do was chase up to San Francisco to meet with the ILM people and discuss the special effects shots. And while I was there, sitting in a meeting with 20 people, I got a call from Art Bennett, the producer back in LA. He said, we have a real problem. Bill Shatner hates the script. And I said, he hates it, but everybody loves the script. How can he hate it? He says, well, it's a problem we'll deal with when you get here. And I thought, that's it, there's no movie. He hates the thing. Why am I sitting up here play acting with all these people as if these shots were actually going to ever happen because there's no movie? And I'm not real good at holding my cards close to my chest. if they didn't notice, it's only because they weren't looking at me. So I went home, and a day or two later, sat in Harv Bennett's office, and Bill Shatner came in and said, I don't know what to say, this is a disaster. And then he went on talking and talking and talking about the things he didn't like, and all I kept doing was jumping up to go to the bathroom. I could not stop peeing. I guess I was so upset and also angry, worried, whatever, that my bladder just kept filling. He said, are you all right? And I said, oh, a little indigestion, whatever it was, I told him. And he finally left. And I sat there with my head in my hands. It was only the second movie I ever directed, and the second star I ever had to deal with. And Harv Bennett, who produced a lot of television and was used to all kinds of things, and also had a sort of analytic temperament that I lacked, was able to sort of break down what Shatner was talking about into sort of bite-sized pieces. And basically what it boiled down to was that he wanted to be the first man through the door. He was the hero. Kirk is the hero, and he was very protective of that. And I was learning how to write for a star. I have said before that Bill is a man of, surprisingly, he has no ego, but he has enormous vanity. As opposed to Ben Kingsley, with whom I worked on Elegy, who has no vanity, but he's enormous ego. And Sir Ben Kingsley. And once I figured out, oh, first man through the door, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then, I went home and then, one night I fixed the whole thing, and he was really happy. The other thing to bear in mind is that the cast of the Star Trek series was very used to the idea of different directors coming in every week and directing them in a show. And they were very, very helpful. They were professionals. They would say, this is not the way she would say this line. And I'd say, okay, how would she say it, and so forth. And, by the end of the first movie, I knew exactly how they all behaved, so that when I did 4 and 6, it was very easy, and I learned how to write for them. But that's basically my Shatner revision story.